Okay, here welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a cool little sneak peek at the new Traska Venture GMT in this bottle green colorway, which is so deep and dark that it's actually hard to capture on camera. Now, a little about the brand. Traska is headquartered out of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and they're founded by John Mack with the intention of making a watch that you could wear every day without worrying about. A true tool watch fit for any activity. In terms of type of watch, this watch falls into that genre of a traveler's watch. Some key characteristics and design, if you're looking for something within that space, of course, you're going to find either a GMT or world timer functionality, so you're able to track multiple time zones with relative ease. Again, this is their Venture GMT bottle green, reference 4217, and this is a bit of a pre-production, but I wouldn't call it, some type of rough prototype. This is quite on point in terms of what you'll be seeing when these are readily available to ship in mid-July at the time of recording this. Now, what has happened to this watch? Well, it's been thoroughly upgraded to feature a similar case and bracelet architecture to their high complication jump hour and chronograph models, to include the use of an applied logo on the dial as well. Now, with those upgrades comes a bump in price point. These are going to go for $950 direct shipped. And again, they will be in stock and ready to ship in mid-July 2026 at the time of recording. All of the things you loved about the watch before are still there, but they're just dressed up in a much nicer, more unique package, to be quite honest. I feel like this is their new kind of signature aesthetic, and it is quite impressive with this GMT layout. So with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, now first let's take a look at this dial, if I can get the light to expose it. Unfortunately, with this brighter background, it's wanting to kind of offset that and create, it's making it, when it's white balancing, it's making the dial a bit darker. Let me see what I can do, if I can just quickly grab something with just a bit of a darker background here and just lay it behind it. Let me see what I can do here. With a black background, you can see that green start to come to life. Look at that. My goodness. Okay, so this is going to have light play, and not in the way that you're thinking, because this is a beautiful glossy lacquered dial, so it's not going to be, as dynamic as something that's textured. But again, it has its own play, because as you can see here, beautiful green elements, and then as everything balances out against a brighter background, guess what? It's going to render very dark, which for me makes this ultra versatile, because for most, in most cases, it's just going to appear black. And then when you really take a look at certain angles, and, it's going to really pop and give you that, again, that beautiful green colorway known as their bottle green. Of course, denoting the green glass bottles of, from the sodas of yesteryear. Now, in terms of the dimensions, 38.5 millimeters in diameter, 12.1 millimeters thick, and that is including the crystal. Of course, it'd be thinner without that. That box dome sapphire sits quite proud of the case. Beautiful case with a nice tidy 45.8 millimeter lug to lug, and of course these are all my own measurements from my own calipers. There will be slightly different measurements posted on their website, but as you can see there, look at that beautiful concave bevel work that they've done. Very, very nice, and it's also going to help protect that bevel. Along with that smart engineering protecting it, you're also going to have a hard coating that adds another 1,000 hardness vigors on the hardness scale, where normal 316L stainless steel is typically around 200 hardness vigors. You add that 1,000, you're about 1,200 hardness vigors, brushed and finely polished as well, in terms of the beautiful accenting done here. Guys, look at the very nice hairline brushing with that beautiful deep high gloss polishing. Really, really great in terms of the contrast there. As you look at it, it gives you a lot to enjoy while still being, I think, quite sedate and versatile because of the styling. Now, This is a boxed double domed sapphire with an inner anti-reflective coating. You also do get that inner rotating 24-hour bezel. You also do have this outer fixed bezel, which is nice and thin and clean with that beautiful radial sunburst patterning there in terms of the brush. And then of course you do have a high polished bevel along the outer portions. Actually, no, you don't with this one. The bevel work is just on the case. I was thinking there might have been a bevel underneath, but you can see it is also satinized as well. Now, the crown is screw down and signed, and you can see the crown is quite nice and elevated as well. Now, in terms of the movement, although you can't see it through this nice solid and flat and thin case back, it's going to be your automatic Miyota 9075 movement, which of course is going to have that traveler slash flyer GMT functionality where you're going to be able to independently adjust the hour hand. So you can jump that locally and then use the 24-hour hand to remember your back home time. So very nice, and again, way more intuitive in terms of travel. There are collar style GMTs. There's nothing wrong with them by any means, but in terms of traveling, this is going to be a much better option. One of the trade-offs though is you don't have a quick set date. You have to cycle through by jumping the hour hand in full rotation forwards or backwards. The nice thing is it works backwards as well. You know, that was actually an issue for some of these styles of GMTs that the Swiss put out at very inflated prices compared to what this Miyota is able to do right out of the box. Now, in terms of the specs here, 42-hour power reserve beating at full 4 hertz, which is fantastic, or 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate. The dial is, of course, that beautiful glossy deep green color. You do get brushed and polished, playful contrasting finishes there on the handset, and then you get into those indices and they just stand out, beautifully applied. You're going to get BGW9 grade A Swiss Superluminova. You're also going to get 150 meters water resistance, which is a bump from the previous 100 meters, which is going to be 500 feet. And with that screw down crown, you're really never going to be needing any more. Now, the lug width also changed, much like those other high-end, high complication models. It's 21 millimeters. And some of you are going to scoff at that. Why did they do that? It's about the proportions. That 21 millimeters, that extra little bit of flare just makes this watch at 38.5 millimeters, I feel like really zero in terms of that look with just a little bit of a wider, and then it goes down to a quite dramatic taper to 16 millimeters. You're getting solid links and end links with quick release spring bars. You're getting everything individually articulated to a beautiful level, and of course still protecting from scratching. You're getting nice perlage work here on that milled scissor folding clasp, and you're also going to get a toolless micro adjustment with 6 positions, and it works just beautifully. You're also going to have a nice little bevel there. Of course, I have some fingerprints on there, a little smudging, but you can still see quite clean, quite handsome. And with this reworked bracelet, there actually aren't any half links because all the links themselves are much shorter by nature. They're all closer to a half link, which means you're going to be able to dial in this fitment really, really nicely. So with all that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist or 19 centimeter in circumference wrist, this looks absolutely perfect. Look at that. Great wrist presence while not being oversized. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, it's going to seem a bit oversized, and that's because there's a fair amount of perspective distortion there. But again, I think it looks quite great still. You can see how beautifully it lays and rides on the wrist. But if I keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here, the nice thing is you're going to be able to get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a true aspect ratio as how this may be sitting on your own wrist. And look at that. All of a sudden, the sides of my wrist are back. The sides of the bracelet on that drape are now back, and you're seeing the watch appear visually way more centered. Look at the flatness there. Of course, you do get a little bit of extra protrusion thanks to that beautifully domed sapphire crystal, but look at just the organic flow of this piece. Again, I love that it's not an homage to an existing model. It really is. I mean, if anything, it's paying homage to Traska's own visual design language, and I do like that it does echo and support so many of those fun features that we've seen in the past, especially I would say purified and distilled through those latest high complication models, whether you're thinking about their jump hour model or their automatic chronograph. Now, one thing, of course, yeah, it looks great on the wrist, but guys, one thing I totally forgot to mention is that they also upgraded their packaging. So I do want to showcase that because I always enjoyed their packaging, but for this model, at least I know, check this out. It's a little bit more traditional on the outside, but I will say, check that out. Significance there. You have an applied logo in your travel roll, and you have an applied logo on the dial. I just think that's really neat. Of course, just like you would expect, a little bit of a rail system here. But this is very, very nice and very, very usable. So, of course, for these smaller brands where, things change very, very quickly, I did want to showcase that because I think it is quite impressive. So well done, Traska. Of course, with that said, we'll get this off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, check that out. Very nice luminescence. Of course, that small outer ring for the GMT scale is going to pale in comparison to the deeply applied indices, as well as the much more coverage that you're going to find from the handset. But what I'll do is I'll try to hit it with a little bit of a black light supercharge to kind of give you a nice idea. Again, this is something that is a balance in terms of being a tool watch, not a pure kind of in-your-face raw piece. This is definitely something that is quite elegant and refined at the same time. So I would say that is a drawback if you're going to be absolutely relying on this in complete darkness. But of course, one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath the overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And as you guys can see, this is just handsome. Look at that dial. The details, the balance, it all just comes together. I really enjoy this piece. It's just one of those watches where it's like, what would I do to this? What would I change? And I'm not the hugest lover of green, but I have to say this makes a case for itself. I did actually have an idea of a cool colorway that I think could be fun. I sent it to John. I don't know if he's, what may come of it in the future, but I think it was a really fun idea that kind of plays up on the experimental and cutting edge nature of this piece to kind of make it feel a bit more, pre-production prototypey. My idea is definitely to capitalize on that. Although this capitalizes on ultimate versatility, this is something that's going to be very unoffensive, yet quite impressive once you dig into those fine details. Now, ooh, look at that green popping. Look at that green dial. It's going to fade away at some point thanks to the white balancing, but while you had it, enjoy it while it lasted. Closing thoughts, guys. On the wrist, excellent proportions, very comfortable and balanced wear, hugs the wrist really, really well. Model variants, do check the site links for current options and availability. Of course, they typically are going to come in and out of stock with various colorways, and sometimes some don't make it to the next run and new colors come in and vice versa. So that's some of the fun of collecting a microbrand. Now, in terms of comparable models, guys, many microbrands are using the 90-75 movement for their more premium offerings. The difference here is that Traska have really, they have that signature hard coating, plus this newly upgraded case and bracelet architecture. So I think that's great. I mean, they could have easily, just kind of done what they have done in the past. But I like that they decided to step things up and release something that just feels a bit more distilled, a bit more signature and purposeful in the vein of Traska's design language. Again, even down to just that applied logo, it just does something special for me, guys. So for me, guys, bottom line, this feels quite complete and conclusive for a microbrand. There's been end-to-end attention to detail, and it shows. This is just a great intersection of design, execution, and branding. all coming together at a very high level. This is the kind of watch that makes you wonder why you'd ever need anything else. And I think that just goes back to completing that original mission that John set out to do in terms of being a true tool watch fit for any activity. It's just so versatile and unoffensive and just could really blend in really almost any activity, to include dressier ones, right? A lot of times when people think of that go anywhere, do anything, they think of these really hyper rugged watches. But if you could go anywhere and do anything, some of the times you'd be putting on, business casual attire, button down, button up, long sleeve shirts and everything like that. You might have a cuff that this is going to have to slide under. So, this is a special piece, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do like. And if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.